Alrighty, let's get into the Shredder Trap Demon Slayer for Season 7. Shredder Trap Demon Slayer is not your typical trapper, despite the name. This build revolves around summoning whirling shredders that'll orbit you, dealing massive damage. Let me actually show you what this looks like in game. So whenever I right click, you can see I have my orbiting Shredder Traps. You just walk around, you don't have to hold it or anything, it's just a one-click button, right? If you click it multiple times, you can get several layers. Depending on how much cooldown recovery you have, you could get, multiple layers of this skill, as well as whenever we hit enemies with it, we have a chance of spawning the additional shredder traps. These will do additional damage to monsters that it hits, which is fantastic. So you can see in a situation where we're like really stacking them up, right, we get quite a lot of extra projectiles that'll go out everywhere. I can't show you what this will look like in an actual zone. Unfortunately, we do not have access to anything but normal on the character, so it's going to be a little bit less potent just because I am going to be killing everything, right, in like one hit, and we're not going to be getting a lot of hits on these monsters because they're just one-tapping, but that's essentially what the gameplay would look like. You just run around. All right, we just run around, run into enemies, they die. Right, you do have some actives that you can press. You can see I just turned on Demonic Presence. We also have a teleport. Right? It does have a cooldown on it. It's called Demon's Calling. But this does allow us to kind of traverse the map a little bit more, get a little bit extra juice. If we're in situations where we need to jump up on a ledge or jump over something, right, we have the ability to be able to do that. So very fun, just walking simulator, Blade Vortexy style build. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of the build here. Again, it's a walking simulator playstyle. A lot of people do enjoy just one-button builds. This is practically a one-button build. You do have built-in auras and passives for physical damage, crit damage, attack rating, all resistance, movement speed. The Demon Slayer does get a lot of juice on it. You also have a built-in execute. This is going to allow you to do additional damage to monsters under a 30% life threshold. And this build can be built with either ranged or melee weapons. It's actually quite flexible. It's quite flexible in the weapons that you can use with this because, again, you can use either melee or ranged. So it just really opens that up. But this guide's mainly going to be using ranged, as we are going to be leveling with a ranged skill. So that's kind of what we're going to be picking up as we go. But this is really up to you. You can play either side. Now, endgame gear is going to need quite a bit amount of CDR to get the shredder traps to overlap, as well as CDR has been nerfed in Season 7. So the amount of CDR that you're going to be getting in Season 6 is not going to equate to the same amount, like the same feel that you will get from Season 7. You are going to need a bit more. I would say that overall, it's probably not worth going too hard into cooldown reduction. You do need to get some, but just making like every item have CDR on it isn't, I don't think, going to be the right answer to the build, at least from my testing. I also have no way of spawning cooldown reduction charms to really like feel how this build will be like in the end game. I do have some examples of that. We'll talk about that when we get there, but that's just something to note that the super min-maxy end game version of this is unknown to me, right? Because I don't have a way to generate what I would actually create for that situation. Now, this is also a melee range build. In situations where, you kill a bunch of enemies, but you didn't kill the elite, and the other enemies are spawning a bunch of novas on the ground, you're like trying to hit the elite, you know what I mean? That could get you killed. That can be dangerous. So just a heads up, it is fairly a melee style build. Now, let's talk about leveling. For leveling, we now have new gems. They are physical gems. These were added actually yesterday. These will give you physical damage while you are leveling. Very, very nice. You find any of these, throw them in your gear. You have sockets anywhere, throw them in your gear. I promise you it'll make a big difference. Or you could save some of them and try and upgrade them maybe to like flawless or perfects for whenever you get to hell. That way you have some perfects right at the start of hell, or maybe some of the budget gear that you find, which would be fantastic. But for levels 1 through 7, we do not have access to Shredder Trap, right? We don't get that until level 24. And once we hit 24, this skill fucks. I ain't gonna lie, boys. Shredder Trap fucks at level 24. It doesn't have the augment, so it's a little bit weird to use. I'll kind of show that when we get there, but it just absolutely destroys bosses. So what we're gonna be doing is leveling as Bullet Hell, right? And then switching into Shredder Trap once we can actually get the augment. So what I do is I put 7 points into Fast Slices. This is going to carry you up till level 8, at which we are going to respec will put a shitload of points into Eagle Eye. This is going to give you a ton of added physical damage, right? Gives you flat physical damage. So this is really going to be beefing up our bullet hell skill. Do not miss out on this. Like, you can dump. I bet if you dumped all of your points into bullet hell, right, you wouldn't have nearly as much damage as we have with just, you know, putting 4 points in and everything being an Eagle Eye. It gives you a lot of damage. So do that. Same thing for level 16. Continue dumping them points into Eagle Eye and Bullet Hell. At this point, you can probably start balancing between them, as you're going to notice that the damage will actually be better by balancing it instead of completely dumping into the Eagle Eye. And one cool thing about the next season is you can actually see tooltips for physical damage, right? So you can see on this skill right here, we can actually see the physical damage of our Shredder Trap, right? So this will give you a good idea. You can respec your trees as many times as you want. You can put 10 points in with, 9 points into Bullet Hell. How much fizz do we have? We can put, 15 points into Bullet Hell and 5 points into Eagle Eye. How much damage do we have? You'll be able to visually see which one is doing more damage. We haven't been able to do that, which is really nice. Level 24, put 1 point into Shredder Trap. You can make a second tree if you would like to, and dump all of your points into Shredder Trap, right? And Eagle Eye. This would be your bossing setup. But while you're out farming, you're just going to have 1 point into it. This will help you with just killing those tankier targets. And then again, continue balancing your points between Bullet Hell and Eagle Eye. This thing will absolutely destroy bosses. Even in a situation where you're like fighting a bloater pack, you could swap to this tree, kill the bloater pack pretty easily. It's a little bit of a finicky skill to use. I can just show that to you real quick, just so that you guys have an idea of what I mean by that. Right? It just throws them on the ground. So if monsters are like moving around, like something's chasing you, you're going to have to angle it so that the Shredder Trap is being applied to them, right? Because there's a small little bit of wind-up time. At level 30, we're going to continue putting points into synergies for Bullet Hell and continue maxing it, right? We did put 1 point into Absolute Mayhem. This is a synergy. We did put 1 point into Demonic Presence. This just gives us an attack damage buff. It's a burst attack damage. We also put 1 point into Demon Shield. This gives us a little bit of movement speed and some all-res. The all-res isn't much, but the movement speed was worth putting 1 point in here. As well as we do have, don't forget your Concentration Aura, right? This can give you a little bit extra attack rating if you're having trouble with hitting enemies. But once we hit level 40, we finally respec to our full tree here. We put 20 points into Shredder Trap, and then we're going to start dumping once again into Eagle Eye. This is going to give us all of that nice physical damage to help us get through. Or at this point, we're going to be blasting because we have our augment, right? Same thing for level 70. Just continue blasting points into Eagle Eye. Then we're going to start going for Demonic Presence. This is not only a synergy, but it's also the active that gives us additional attack damage. And then we're going to be putting the rest into Possessed Bullet. Finally, level 100, here's our final tree. 20 points into Shredder Trap, 20 points into Eagle Eye, 20 points into Possessed Bullets, 20 points into Demonic Presence. Get 1 point into your Blink skill. This is Demon's Calling. 1 point into Demon's Form. Then we go 20 points Eagle Eye. And we put the rest of our points into Execute, right? We want to make sure that we can get that additional damage. This is also really important for whenever you're bossing on the skill, right? You get that extra damage to monsters under 30%. So something to mention about our Demon's Calling, we did put that on at level 40, right? Because this is what's going to allow us to be able to just get that teleport. At this stage of the game, it's like every 3 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds, you have a teleport. But it is nice in situations where maybe you get stuck or you need to jump over a gap or whatever it may be. It can definitely add some value to your leveling. For sub-skill trees, if you're not familiar with them, these were new in Season 5. You simply just click on the plus sign on top of a skill, right? This will open up this window. You can spec out your character. These big nodes here, these are augments. You can only have one of these per skill, and they drastically can change how the skill functions. I do have all of these listed here. Shredder Trap, that top right augment's what's going to make those Shredder Traps orbit around us, and then make sure we max out this far left node to give us the additional damage on the traps that go out range. They shoot out everywhere, right? We also went for increased damage to bleeding targets, as we do have bleed chance in here. And then this here, you could maybe drop some points out of the increased damage to bleeding and go all armor break. That might end up being maybe a bit more damage than increased damage to bleeding. Definitely have to try these two out, right? You can stack the traps on top of each other to shotgun the bosses, right? So this is what we're going to be using to kill bosses with. We just switch to that top left augment, put this maybe on your second loadout, and you'll just throw a bunch on top of each other, and it'll melt bosses. Demon's Calling. Here's how we get a blink. You only need one point in it. Right, you only need 1 point in it. This is also going to inflict the burn on enemies. This will make them take increased damage to affixes, or make them take increased damage to our skills whenever we have certain affixes, like extra damage to burning targets, right? So this is really important to be adding. Bullet Hell. Now, we only use this for leveling, but I did want to show it. This is going to give us a ton of extra projectiles, so this really helps with your just overall clear and moving through the game. These bullets can have a shotgunning effect, so that can definitely help with some of that early leveling. Attribute allocation while we're leveling, 2 out of 2. Strength, vitality, you're going to balance between them. If you feel like you have enough damage, go more vitality to be tankier. If you feel like you're not tanky enough, get some more life. Try and find life on charms and just resistances around your character. It can definitely really help with that. This build doesn't really have a whole lot of issues with mana once you find leech, right? Once you find any source of leech, you're done seized with mana. Like, you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? For dexterity, you can put a little bit here if you're having issues hitting. This does give you attack rating for every point of dexterity, but this is completely up to you. If you're not having any issues, then don't worry about it. And then once you get to the end game, we're going to be putting all of our points into strength to get the most damage. For gearing, you can see that we have leveling gear, budget gear, mid-game gear, and end game gear, right? We have all that information available in here. So we are going to talk about that a little bit. Leveling gear. Do not look for certain satanics. You don't need to. It's a waste of your time to stop and try and farm out any particular satanic. Now, you are going to drop some while you are playing the game. I cannot account for which ones you're going to drop. I've had people be like, I can't believe you wouldn't recommend certain satanics while you're leveling. Well, because I can't guarantee you're going to get any of them, right? If you are a newer player and you would like to farm out like maybe an early Legion monster, you've kind of seen those little mini bosses, you could farm those out and try and get some early satanics for sure. That can make a big difference for while you're leveling, but the amount of time that you're going to be spending doing that versus continuing to play the game, right? You're better off just playing the game because you hit level 40 and you're going to be skyrocketing anyway. So completely up to you. However, there are rune words that you can make that are practically guaranteed at this point, right? You get the runes from Act 1 quests for free. Then all you need to do is just be looking out for the bases while you're playing the game. You find, a 2-socket pair of boots. Oh, I can use that. You find a 3-socket chest. Oh, I can use that. So that's really what leveling is going to be about. In the leveling section, I have every single item type with rune word suggestions and what you would look for on normal through mythic items, right? You could find a normal item on the ground that has a bunch of physical skill damage on it. You might just wear that because it has a lot of physical skill damage, and maybe it rolled an implicit with some attack speed, and maybe it has cooldown reduction on it. That's insane, right? You would still wear that. So this is just going to give you different suggestions on things that you would want to find on those mythics or whatever your rarity item you find, right? So things like physical damage, flat damage, enhanced damage. Enhanced damage will increase the damage of your weapons damage. So you can find this enhanced damage mod on other pieces of gear like gloves, rings, amulets, charms. And this is going to be directly increasing the attack damage of your weapon. It's very, very important to help you just blast through. Attack speed, not as important. Things like cooldown reduction can also be important. I will be sure to add that into here on some items. The thing about cooldown reduction is it can help, but with the changes to cooldown reduction, shit, what am I doing? Not like this. Here, I'll redo it. Not like this. The thing with it is because of the nerf to cooldown reduction, you're not going to get that much value out of it initially, right? You're really not. You're going to need quite a bit to really feel it. You're going to need quite a bit to really feel it. That's what she said. I'm having some trouble with this. All right, it's going right there. It's fine. So I didn't add it in here just because I don't think it makes that much of an impact to your leveling experience, because you put on like 20 or 30% cooldown recovery and you're not even going to notice it, right? So otherwise, we have things like Malice, Sky Song. These will have a lot of attack damage on them. If you need some resistances, you can go for a Divine Contemplation on a shield. This will give you a ton of resistances. Same thing for helmets. Flesh Ripper will give you a ton of res. You also get that crit chance in there. It's really nice. Chest pieces. Shadow, Mayhem, Gladstone, Goose. These can all be really nice chest pieces to wear early on. Shadow just giving you a bunch of movement speed. Now, there is also a new rune word in Season 7 called Fog, right? This was added recently. I'm going to show that to you here live real quick. So we can go here, rune words, Fog. This is a 2-socket rune word. If any of you are familiar with smoke, it is basically the smoke of Hero Siege, right? It's practically the smoke of Hero Siege. It just needs a Hell and a Fel. You get these for free. Practically, whenever you're doing your Hell 1 quest, you can prospect your runes down to get Hell Fel. Find any 2-socket armor. I practically always find a 2-socket armor. I have a hard time finding 3 sockets while I level. But this will give you up to 40% all res. You could pair this with, an offhand, a Divine Contemplation, and you're sitting real pretty on your resistances. You could also just be wearing a 2-hander now and not feel like complete crap because you have some resistance. For gloves, just looking for any ED, Fizz gloves, boots, make quick steps. These can be used at as early as level 31. These will give you a shitload of movement speed, attack speed, leech, everything you need. Whatever you can get for belts, whatever you can get for rings, whatever you can get for amulets, and whatever you can get for charms. Your amulets and rings definitely be looking for crit chance, crit damage, and enhanced damage, right? These things are all super important to the build. For early game and budget gear, once you hit level 100, there's a lot of options in here that you could maneuver in and out. It just really kind of depends on your stat sheet, right? It really just depends on this stat sheet. I get a lot of people that ask me, hey, do I use this weapon? How is this item? Do I put this on? And it's not just a straight answer. It depends on things like your crit chance, your crit damage, your deadly blow. Do you have a source of crushing blow? Do you have a decent weapon? What's the weapon doing? Does it have a lot of attack speed? Where's your cooldown at? Like, there's more to this than just this weapon good, wear it. You know what I mean? So I do have some example builds in here showing you some different setups that we used, right? To give you an idea of what we're looking at for DPS and what I was able to put together for DPS. For weapons, right? What matters here is that attack damage. These are only made on 1-handers. So you can make these on 2-handers to get more juice on them. I really, really liked the F4 tack rifle, right? I really enjoyed that F4 tack rifle. You get 20% crit chance, you get deadly blow, you get crit damage, you get ignore target defense, you get skills, you get so much on this thing, and you have sockets. I would highly recommend that T4 tack rifle. It can carry you quite far. But any of these options could be totally fine. Helmets, if you're not wearing a Flesh Ripper, most likely that's what you're going to be making, right? Maybe on a better base or something, just because you get resistances, you get the crit chance, you just get so much value for Flesh Ripper. Otherwise, you need to be making Legionnaire, right? Legionnaire is going to give you a ton of extra damage. Maybe try and find a base too. But the main thing here is you get Live by the Sword for a bunch of extra movement speed. For chest pieces, Fortress is what you want to make. Finding high runes early, not hard, especially a Zoe rune. Super easy to get. Make a Fortress to give you 250% enhanced damage. Really, really nice. Before you can get to a Fortress, there's also Cocoon of the Berserker. It's like a step down. There's also rune words that you can make. For gloves, Siege Breakers is what I recommend. You get the most amount of ignore target defense, enhanced damage, resistances. Otherwise, I would just look for mythic gloves that have a shitload of enhanced damage on them. For boots, if you're not running quick steps, make them. They have the most amount of movement speed. You really need that on the build. Otherwise, Crush Fleets are your next go. This has 3 high runes in it. Berberzo. This one can be a bit expensive to make. I understand that. Not that hard to farm for high runes early on, so definitely make Crush Fleets. If you can't find a good base for it, doesn't really matter. If you can't find a good like crit base or skills base, not that big of a deal at this stage. Just make it. You can always remake it later. You'll get tons of high runes. For belts, Butcher Belt's really nice. Get the resistances, you get skills. Brute's Cord's gonna be the best for getting your crit up, and you get crit damage, ignore target defense. Right. For rings, we have Coda Wedding Bands and Elven Graces. These were actually buffed in Season 7. Coda Wedding Band has 2 skills on it and up to 40% movement speed. Really, really nice. So this is what you would probably run until you can find some good Elven Graces to be able to switch into a crit build. Elven Grace also now has 2 skills on it. Otherwise, just look for like enhanced damage, crit rings, essentially. For amulets, we have Raven's Claw. This is our crit variant. Otherwise, just look for a high ED or crit damage mythic. You could wear like an All-Seeing Eye or a Calistree if you really wanted to. There's also Spirit Pendant. It's a cooldown amulet. You could wear that until you can find a Raven's Claw, but we really got to get that crit chance up. Now for charms, be on the lookout for your crit chance, crit damage, enhanced damage charms. Do not forget to put these on your filter, okay? Do not forget to put crit chance, crit damage, enhanced damage on charms on your filter. If you forget that, you're going to hate yourself, okay? Very important to the build, especially early on when you're in this initial stage and you're trying to ramp up your damage. That's how you do it, okay? So also physical damage, right? Another big one in here is flat physical damage. Phys damage on charms, or just flat damage in general on charms, has been nerfed. You're not going to get nearly the value that you got before, but if you find some, you're not going to not use them, right? As well as I do have a bunch of satanic charms listed in this section below, so you can scroll down and take a look at some of those. For mid game, I do have an entire doc in here that explains how to scale your damage as a physical attacker. Right? There's a ton of information in here. If you don't know what ignore target defense does, you don't know what crit chance does, crit damage, deadly blow, open wounds. I have explanations for everything, as well as there is a full formula for everything at the bottom, right? I do have example setups. Wearing different weapons. Once again, I cannot get CDR charms. There's no way for me to spawn CDR charms. I'm missing like all my charm inventory on some of these. So just different setups that you can do with the character, and just kind of like how I would upgrade certain things, and as I upgrade them, what I get to, right? So let's talk about those, right? Monsoon can offer a lot of attack damage, leech, and attack rating. I understand you get Ricochet on this. I do not believe Ricochet worked whenever we tried it. Let's give it a go real quick, actually. I'll just put it on real fast. Weapons, bows, Ricochet. Ricochet. No. So Ricochet does not work. However, it does have a lot of attack damage on it, so it still just provides a lot of value there, and you have to 4 sockets. If you find one, by all means, you could use one. That T4 attack rifle can go a really long way. Even now, you could slam this thing and get some extra juice on it. You could use that for quite a while. Now, before you get a lot of crit chance and crit damage, if you're still rocking a lot of the ED related stuff, Shadow Fury or Shadow Carver in this situation, right? You can use either one of the Reaper weapons that he can drop, right? Because you can use either one on this build. It allows you to be ranged or melee. So this will make it so that you cannot crit. It's like Resolute Resolute Technique from PoE. So you cannot crit. However, you get a ton of additional attack damage, and you cannot miss, right? So you no longer have to care about your attack rating on the character. And yeah, it has a bunch of extra juice in it. You also get Proj speed, which does affect our juice, right? Right, it does make it makes the second one go out a little bit faster, is what it does. It is not going to affect the rotation. I've tried everything I could think of to affect the rotation speed of the Shredder Trap. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Okay. Next, we have things like AK-47s. We have the Glock 22. The Glock 22 was nerfed, still an insane weapon to get. So all those are going to be available here. We also have things like Candy Shredder. Candy Shredder is a super budget weapon. This can be used with a shield, right? So you can get some extra damage from a shield. We also have things like Glow Stick. This is going to give you the most amount of attack speed. However, we don't really take advantage of the high attack speed. It just really does get... I think it's a lot of attack damage. It's a decent weapon if you end up dropping one or can pick one up for cheap. I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's just more of a if you get sort of situation. Also new to Season 7 is Stormslayer. This thing is... Oops. This thing is insane. This thing is absolutely insane. You get so much on this. You get double jump. You get a shitload of attack damage. You get extra damage to bleeding monsters. This one is absolutely insane. And then lastly, Blood Moon Crescent. This can roll with Physical skills. This recently was changed. So I actually made this guide when I put Blood Moon in here. You couldn't get phys skills. You can now, so it's even more value. You also get a bunch of skill diminish, right? So this just means whenever you click your Shudder Trap, you're not going to get slowed down as much as you might have noticed that you sometimes get slow whenever you use certain skills. You also get movement phasing. This can be really nice for the build because since we don't really have a teleport, we're just basically running and kill things sort of class. You're not going to get stuck on mobs while you're trying to run through everything. So a lot of value on Blood Moon Crescent. This is what I would try to go for. This can be farmed from Amun Ra, right? Now for helmets, if you're not using Legionnaire yet, get Legionnaire. It's pretty much it. You could go for Nikita's. If you end up dropping one, Nikita's can be a decent option, especially if you are not in the enhanced damage setup. You're in the crit setup because this will give you a bunch of attack rating. Now, all Fizz skills can take advantage of the new Dragonite helmet. This comes from the Andrixia fight in the Ruby Gardens, right? So this gets up to 40% extra damage to burning monsters. We get burning from our Demon's Calling, so you can apply burning that way. There's also the Molten Paw. You can put this on your back bar and use that to proc burning on monsters. And then if you're farming Luna and you end up getting a High Roller Death Crown that like has a decent roll on it, by all means you could use that. For chest pieces, we have things like Executioner's Cocoon. That's going to be our upgrade from Fortress. If you're currently not using Fortress, you should be. Get a Fizz skills or a all skills base, get enhanced defense base, get resistances, max res. There's all sorts of things that you could get on a base for the Fortress. So it only costs 1 Zoe, so you should be able to upgrade this base quite easily. And then from there, we have things like Heaven's Might, Azarius. Azarius is actually really nice. You get a lot of value on Azarius. Tons of damage reduction and skills, resistances, sockets, kind of everything that you need. So this is becoming one of my favorite chess pieces. But Exi Cocoon is by far the most damage. For gloves, you are going to want Brawler Fighter Mitts. You farm these from Sangli. You absolutely want Brawler Mitts. These go up to +4 of the face breakers, giving you a bunch of increased attack damage. This matters, right? It really does matter. If you roll a +1, you'll probably be dicing it, right? Alley boxing gloves can be a good option before you get to this point, as well as you could even take your siege breakers, right? You could take your siege breakers and slam them. Slamming siege breakers with satanic dice can be good too. You can get some like, I don't know, enhanced damage, or maybe get max res, or you get whatever you can on these siege breakers to give them a little bit extra juice. For boots, if you're not using crush fleets, get crush fleets, right? You're trying to find a crit damage base. If you can't get crit damage, you get skill bases. There's all sorts of things you can get for crush fleets, but mainly you want crit damage. Otherwise, brutal roamers. These can also be farmed from the new rogue chaos towers in the Codex of Chaos. These are insane. They're best in slot for your bossing. Make sure you get them, right? Try and farm these out. For belts, we have Belt of Skulls, right? Decent. You get Deadly Blow, get extra damage, attack damage, really good. You can slam Butcher Belts to try to get some extra juice on them, like a hole, or really any of your S tier Satanics that you're using, like a Brute Scored. Maybe you get some extra damage on a Brute Scored. Gladiator King Belts are going to be much easier to farm this season. You can get them from the Coliseum Fragments. You can get from the season mechanic, as well as you can get them from they're easier to get from the Chaos Tower, right? They have a chance of dropping way more often from the actual Chaos Tower, so there's going to be more Coliseum Fragments just in the market in general. So go farm a Gladiator King's Belt. It is very, very good. And then lastly, if you have access to the auction house or trade, Girdle of Eternal War is OP. These can now roll with Fizz skills as well. This has been changed recently. Girdle can now roll with... Oh, I already have it. It can now roll with Fizz skills. Perfect. Beautiful. All right. You also get a Shield of Life. You get phasing. You get so much for Girdle. For rings, Elven Graces, if you're still wearing those, you can slam them. Try and get some extra juice like this one here. You also have... you could then mirror it with our cool Ritual Band if you're able to farm Rakul. You also have Pit Fighter's Carnage. These are all right. You get a lot of physical damage. You get enhanced damage, resistances. Once again, like doubling that could be really nice too. But you're going to be losing a lot of crit chance in order to do that. And if you're on the crit build, it's like, if you get one, give it a shot. These could be an okay option. Azazel's with an Anubis Soul Gem in it is best in slot. You can get an Azazel's in the early held or in held difficulty, right? They're going to be expensive if you try to buy one, and it's also quite rare to get an Azazel's, but you can get Azazel's in hell. There will be some lucky ass people that do drop them. Then on top of that, you are also going to want it to be +3 before you try to socket a soul gem in it. So a lot to happen there, but it is a possibility for those of you that maybe get a little bit more rich early on. Then there's also Sung Lee's Unleashed Rage. You can farm this from Sung Lee. Skills, you get a bunch of physical damage, you get strength. This could be a decent option as well. It's a lot like the Pit Fighters, just you get the skills on it, right? For amulets, if you're not using Raven's Claw, get Raven's Claw. You can slam it, extra juice, right? Griffin's Claw is the upgraded variant of your Raven's Claw. Just gives you more crit damage. And then if you're on the ED setup, Eagle Claw can be really good. And then lastly, we have our charms. Once again, enhanced damage, crit chance, crit damage charms. Do not forget about those. You can also get Tablets of the Awakening, and you can put either runes in it. You can get resistances. You can get elemental gems for all attributes. You can socket Moonstone gems for 7% IAS and 7 strength, 7 dexterity. The Moonstone gems, the IAS isn't going to provide that much value, and then you get less attributes than you would an elemental gem, but they are there. And then lastly, we have a bunch of charms from the budget section. These can still be useful in the end game, so I just have them listed here. If you heard me talking about Molten Paw and burning damage and you're not sure what that's about, give this a read through. It'll explain how that mechanic works. Basically, you just put it on your back bar, activate your fire enchant, swap back to your front bar, and now you have burning on your attacks. Easy. Once you get to end game, there's a lot that comes to min-maxing your character. Starting in Season 6, we had the ability to slam items. I'm not going to be showcasing any of this gearing or any of the DPS setups with anything slammed. You're never going to be able to replicate that. So there's a lot of things that you could do to create this build. Once again, we talked about CDR, right? I have no CDR in here, right? I didn't even go for like the extra sockets because like there's no point. I would be putting more CDR on this build. It does have really good damage without it. You can see we obviously get a good weapon. It's all about that weapon, boys. If you have a shit weapon, you're going to be doing shit damage. We are obviously using some Inferno items as well, but my charm inventory could be way, way better. Yeah, there's definitely more juice to be pulled out of this. Now, the single target is a little bit lower compared to some of the other Fizz builds that I played, at least as of right now. Once again, once you start pumping in some of that CDR, that could drastically change its total value. It will change its total value, but you could always use the Demon Slayer, a different skill, because you are wearing a bow. Like I could probably swap into Bullet Hell with this exact gear on, or maybe like some more fleshed out charms that would still benefit both sides of the build, and just switch to like Bullet Hell and do a bunch of single target damage with the Bullet Hell augment, right? There's a Bullet Hell augment that can shotgun the shit out of bosses. You could do that. Maybe you go Slice of Shadows. Maybe you're wearing a melee weapon. You could do the same thing and do a bunch of damage with Slice of Shadows. So completely up to you, but I did want to show some idea of what this build would look like in the end game and with our gearing. But without them CDR charms, it's honestly like I'm still wearing a feather because I really didn't want to showcase this with things that you probably wouldn't wear. I wanted to give a better idea of like, hey, here's the main gear, and then if you end up getting a bunch of CDR charms, which you should, like that's just it's gonna make it even better, right? It's gonna make it even better. So beautiful. Let's talk about relics. You're pretty much going to be using Twin Blade, Nunchucks, Razor Blade, Butterfly Knife. These are the main ones, right? You could swap out Butterfly Knife, swap Butterfly for Commander Sword. Right? Commander Sword gives you up to 100% attack damage, so that could be fantastic as well. Or you can maybe swap it for Triforce if you need some additional resistances, right? That could be great as well. Now, potions, the main one that we care about here, if you scroll, whoa. The main one we care about here is caffeinated coffee container. This is going to give us increased damage to burning targets, right? This is very, very important with our Molten Paw and with being able to apply burning to monsters. And then from there, I honestly just kind of pick whatever, right? I like having good movement speed. I like having enhanced damage and things like that. So any of those options would be perfectly fine. For chest augments, Berserker Rage is going to be the most damage, but it reduces your resistances completely, right? It reduces all of them. So the value that you get out of Berserker Rage honestly isn't worth it. I've done a lot of testing with Berserker Rage, and Lethal Tempo, honestly, in most situations, is basically the same damage without any of the downside, right? So I would go for a Lethal Tempo. It's going to give you a bunch of crit damage on it. The attack speed not going to affect us too much. If you are playing in hardcore and want a bit more tankiness, you can go for Survivor Shield. For hero levels, if you're not sure how to spec your hero level tree, I do have an entire video explaining how this works, as it's quite situational, right? There's not a whole lot of power that can be gained from the hero level tree, but there are certain strategies and things that you can do to get the most out of your hero level tree as you're progressing. So definitely check out that video, as well as if you don't know about glyphs. Glyphs offer a ton of different utility depending on the certain things that you want to engage with in the game. So give this video a look-see. This will show you what all the glyphs do in the game. Now, Mercenary, we're going to be using the Act 1 Merc, mainly because Mercenaries are either one, an Aura bot character, or they only give us Magic Find, right? I personally stack the ever-living hell out of Magic Find on my Mercenaries. I typically don't even put an Aura on them because I just want the most amount of juice. However, you can put things like Aurora's Might. This is going to give you a huge resistance buff, right? If you're having trouble with your resistances, this can help with your res. And then the other option would be Valkyrie. This gives you an attack speed aura. Not going to help your Shredder Trap, but if you are maybe switching to a bossing setup, this can help that bossing setup if it's a attack speed base and doesn't have CDR, right? So these are some different options. Otherwise, you're just going to be picking anything, stacking Istrunes and everything. Same thing for chest pieces. Same thing for helmets. Same thing for offhands. Whatever you can get, throw Ists and everything. Get as much Magic Find on that Merc as you possibly can. It'll help a lot. For loot filters, there is an in-game loot filter and highlight filter. So this explains how you're going to set that up, right? There's also a video that I made back in season 6 that explains how to get your loot filter, right? I have a video and a full written guide available here. So if you go into the written guide, it will show you exactly what you can do to set up a filter for season 7. Okay, I cannot give you one. There's no way that I can create a filter in season 7 beta or on the season 6 client that will work for season 7 at start. You are going to have to do it yourself, but I teach you how to do it. So be sure to watch that video if you want to filter. And then for end game filters, right? For our end game filters, it's going to be two things here. I'm either going to update it here, so you guys have your filter available on each of these documents, or I will put it up on the website. I haven't decided. It just depends on the time that I have here. So those will be available on like day 1, start of day 2 for you guys, okay? If you're newer to Hero Siege and you need some additional information, I do have a helpful resources section on every guide. I have a 2.5-hour beginner guide, season 7 patch notes if you want to see what else is changing or just want some additional information on what's going on with the patch. I have what do you do after level 100? This is a big one. I get this question all the time. What do I do once I hit level 100? This will give you early game progression tips and tricks of tons and tons of different things that you can do. It's a 13-page document to try and make some early currency and to progress your character early on. So definitely give this a look-see if you're new to Hero Siege. And of course, I will have all of my builds available on GalaxyGuides.com. This link is available in all of my docs, so that way you guys can, find exactly what you are wanting to play for season 7, right? And with that being said, that's going to wrap up the Shredder Trap Demon Slayer for season 7, which does start on June 6th. I'm super excited. Come check us out at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV, where I'm going to be playing the launch live. So would love to see you guys there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.